Hello and welcome to Moneycards. My name is John Hobby. Today we're talking about shuffling and flexibility and how that influences your purchase decision when you're purchasing a set of face cards or a deck of face cards. Now, I submit that question to you. Think about that as we have this discussion about face cards, shuffling, flexibility. Okay, now let me show you. It seems like the gold standard of shuffling, of poker chips, of the gambling community it comes back to, a few places like Monte Carlo, Las Vegas, or Macau, all right? Now, in Las Vegas, I was there December 2015, stayed at the Wynn, lovely resort, and something that a lot of us, kind of forget, because when you're there, it's just so convenient. This is how professional dealers shuffle in the Wynn, the Mirage, the Aria, several other poker rooms I've been in. Okay, this is what they do. They take the used deck. Everybody, they give their cards back. They take the deck that needs to be shuffled. They put it in the automatic card shuffler, and then they remove the pre-shuffled, automatically shuffled deck. Okay, they close the lid, whatever they need to do to get it going, and then they cut this deck, and then they pitch the hand. All right, holy smokes, So dealers these days in a modern casino don't ever shuffle. Okay. So now that opens up a whole can of worms, because are you going to run with this automatic shuffling machine? And secondly, do you trust your really expensive cards? Like, this is a set of Chem face cards. U.S. Playing Card Company obviously acquired them. You can see, obviously Chem. That's what these two decks are. Now, do you trust your $15 per deck or $30 combination deck here to a little automatic shuffling machine? It's a tough question. Some of you will say absolutely yes. Some of you will say absolutely no. I am of the mindset that I do not want to stick these in an automatic shuffling machine. I enjoy shuffling enough. It's enough of the poker experience that I don't mind it, okay? These are all questions that you have to ask yourself, all right? If you are going with an automatic shuffling machine, the last thing you're going to be worried about is shuffling your cards. The only thing I could imagine you think about is that question I asked. Would you want to feed these cards into that automatic shuffler? Fine, some automatic shufflers may work better than others. But let's go through the casino, the traditional casino hand shuffling routine here, okay? Generally, any good dealer, any good casino will have the dealers wash the deck, all right? So they spread it out. Obviously, I'm limited on space here. I'm in this little box where I stay on camera, so this is more representative than an actual shuffle, okay? So they wash the deck like this, and then, they square the deck off in a really quick fashion, and then they riffle box, okay? Now, real quick, while I'm doing this, we were in the Wynn poker room in December, obviously 2015. Now it's February 2016, and there was somebody from another state who lived in a community where tipping is not trendy, all right? And so the trend there is that restaurants are, paying their waitresses and waiters more, and they're asking their patrons not to tip. And so, this person's, was preaching to all of us how we shouldn't tip in Las Vegas. I strongly disagree with that. I believe in, their communities. I can support their communities going with this non-tipping thing, but when this person is preaching everybody should be equal regardless of their performance or looks or anything, okay, that's, their opinion. But in Las Vegas, your dealer is doing a good job entertaining you. Your dealer is working hard. And in Las Vegas, they're not getting paid as much as they are in other places. If you think you're going to change the world by not tipping, that's the wrong way to go about it. Change the world first. And then once you're sure they're getting enough money, like in your communities with waiters and waitresses, then you can adopt the I'm not going to tip, okay? But before then, you really, stop trying to rationalize your cheapness, all right? So tip your dealers. Now we're ready to play our little hand. Everybody should hopefully have a shuffled deck in front of them. Grab 2 cards off the top. I'm going to take my traditional 2 cards off the bottom. Should I show you guys what these are? Let me have a look. Yeah, I'll show you. Woof. Look at that beautiful hand right there. Okay, so draw 2 cards. Tell us what you have in the comments. Uh-oh, this is really dangerous for me right now. You see, look at this. Bottom pair. Oh my goodness. Somebody has Broadway out there. It's a very straighty board. Oh dear, look at that. That's an awesomely wet board. All right, well, tell us what you have. I have a queen. All right, lucky you. So, shuffling. Let's talk about shuffling real quick and how it affects my purchase decision, and hopefully it will help some of you. So, real quick, a little pitching. This is my dad talking, okay? A little pitching advice. When you're pitching cards, meaning like you're throwing cards to all the players, don't frisbee them like this. My dad taught me this when I was young, maybe 10, 12 years old. He suggests that I just extend my fingers like this to save my wrist. But, you're still using these muscles to extend your fingers. So if you do this if you exert too much, energy doing this, or do this excessively, I could see there being some fatigue here. But either way, instead of frisbeeing it, he just said, just flick it with your fingers. Pretty simple to do. Do you see that fail? I love it when I fail on camera. It always makes me laugh. I always feel good because I'm like, good, I don't want to be showing off, That was a better one. You don't want to be showing off, to everybody. I'd rather be come across as human, because I am human. I'm just some average guy, a hobbyist who likes to make videos about this stuff because I love this stuff. All right. Now, shuffling comes to, for me, a couple of decisions. The first thing, and I'm just going to talk about this straight away. If I'm going to weave the deck, this is what we call weave. Okay, this is how we weave. Maybe I should explain it more in depth to you people. There are some people that are new to this that have never, never really explored this. So I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence. There are going to be people who have been doing this longer than I've been alive. So read the comments. There'll be some good comments. But if you're new to this idea of weaving, and this is just what I call it, there may be a technical name for it. Yeah, maybe somebody will be able to tell us in the comments, but this is what I've called it my whole life. Basically, you're taking this corner and you're matching it with this side of, the one in my left hand here. And then you're putting them close enough together that when you straighten them out, they will overlap, okay? And so all you do is when you bring them up like this, the cards just flex into and interweave like this, in this nice weave pattern, all right? So that's weaving, and then you box, okay? So weave, box, whatever you want to do, or just weave, box. If I'm going to do that weave shuffle, I always consider plastic cards. All right, now, there are some great plastic cards out there like the Ace Authentic here. Get these on Amazon. They were pretty expensive when I purchased these. Almost cheap enough that I'm considering replacing my bicycle, because we just buy these, stacks of 10 or 12 or 20 or whatever we can get our hands on, because we go through these, frequently. So I'm considering replacing those with these Ace Authentic. They're that interesting to me, but we'll talk about that maybe in a future video for heavy use, industrial strength face cards. All right. So, but these are 100% plastic, and I can weave these cards beautifully. So if I'm considering weaving, I always go for plastic. Now, there are other ways to weave. You can do the reverse weave. We're not going to explore that right now. This is not a how-to video. This is just a discussion about how that influences your purchase decision. So plastics, I always go with plastics if I'm going to weave. I can weave paper cards, but it just takes so much more energy. And understand, weaving is not an efficient way to shuffle because you're using the very tips of your fingers, the pads of your fingers to hold the deck, which requires a lot of energy to squeeze that, right? Because the leverage is working against you in this case. If you do the reverse weave, which I'm not going to do with paper, but if you do the reverse weave, you may get a little bit better leverage and you may have less hand fatigue. But this is a great way to demonstrate it on camera, so I'm going to stick with this. You see, you can do it, but it just takes a lot of energy, and the coefficient of friction is much greater on these, so there's more friction pushing them together. Not my ideal setting. Okay, so, but the other common ways I see shuffling, like an overhand shuffle, so like this. Overhand shuffling is very reasonable with paper or plastic. I could do that all day, not a huge problem. And very similar is what I call the dealer riffle. This is how traditionally I've seen it done in Vegas poker rooms. Instead of the overhand is the whole half of the card coming together like this, the whole half of the card being bent up. Instead of all of that, you're just bending up the corners right here, and the corners just come together. Very low energy, very low fatigue, easy to do, okay? I can do that again with paper, plastic. Those don't concern me at all. Because I have those in my, ready to go, I don't have to worry about using paper decks. And in fact, like I said, these are our industrial, go-to decks when we just need, we just want to play, travel set, all of that stuff. We always just go for the paper. I only shuffle the weave with plastic. So that's the only decision making I really make. Do I shuffle plastic? Like generally 90% of the time with plastic, even I'm using that dealer riffle. Okay. Maybe 10% of the time, I will do the weave. Okay. Maybe 10%. Yeah. 5 to 10%. So, that's my decision. Leave a comment. Tell us how that affects your purchase decision. Speaking of shuffling here, we're going to go through a little segment here because it kind of one of my pet peeves. I'm going to get on a little soapbox here. I'm going to have a little segment here called How to Not to. All right. This is how not to shuffle. Things I see that really make you look awfully amateurish. Okay. The first thing is you want to keep the cards on the felt. You don't want to flash cards to everybody. Now, okay, imagine you're playing poker with 9 people. Okay, let's say you're even playing a cash game with 9 people. Okay, we don't play cash here. I'm more of an instructor and telling people about etiquette, protocol, giving instruction rather than actually playing for cash. So that's what I like to do. Okay, but tell me what I'm doing wrong here. Okay, everybody can see these cards, right? Look at this. Everybody can see these cards. Even when I'm shuffling, it's like just a, terrible shuffle, terrible, and I've even seen one individual every time she shuffled, okay? So she would go through this routine, but she actually did this on the felt, okay? So very reasonable, okay? And then she'd push them together, and then she'd go like this. She'd look at it, just herself, she would look at it, and then she would go like this. All of us were just like, wait a second, did you just look at that bottom card? Just blatantly, just like, oh, look, there's a King of Hearts on the bottom. What? What are you doing there? Yeah, it cracked me up. Okay, that's how you don't shuffle. It's so easy to leave it on the felt. Reach over, grab half the deck, okay, and then just overhand shuffle. Easy to do. Just don't worry about it. Or even easier, the dealer riffle. Separate the decks like that. Your fingers are already in position. And just riffle them together. So easy to do, okay? How to not to, don't flash cards. If you're gonna box, put them down on the felt, take the top 5th, 3rd, 4th, whatever, and then make a little pile right here, keeping the cards face down. Easy to do, please, just don't. How to not to, don't flash cards like that, okay? It really aggravates people. Another thing, maybe I'll talk about little security measures here in another video. We need to get going on to flexibility, okay? So, not trying to insult anybody's intelligence. I know a lot of you already know that, but there's going to be somebody who's brand new, who's not familiar with it, who that may benefit. So, thanks for bearing with me. Now, this little contraption right here is what you're going to be seeing in some photos. It's just 2 pieces of scrap wood. I mean, seriously, just scrap wood. You can see all the holes in it. They're all dinged up, but they were good enough for what my purpose is. I super glued them to a piece of construction paper. By the way, if you need super glue to set instantly, use some baking soda. It's a great kicker. It'll dry your super glue just in a snap, okay? So I threw this together really quick for the purpose of measuring flexibility of these face cards. And I guess I'm going to start with the most flexible, okay? So as these things flexed, I would put 2 craps dice on the card. Let me just show you here real quick. So I'd get a face card. This is a chem face card. I'd put 2 craps dice on here just to maintain an equal amount of weight, right? So for every card, got the same amount of weight every time, the same 2 dice. It was reasonable, okay? And then I would turn it upside down and do the same thing face up, all right? Now, every deck that I photographed had a difference between face up and face down. Wow, all right, that was interesting. That was interesting to me. I was like, wow, I never even thought about that. Cards flex differently face up and face down. It's like grain of the wood, but instead it's like plastic. It's just the nature of the plastic, maybe the coatings they put on it. So real quick, for the scientists out there, this is not a scientific experiment. This is an exercise in visualization, okay? I'm trying to visually demonstrate that different cards have different flexibilities, okay? Different amounts of flex, okay? And I took one card from each deck. That's it. So in no way was this ever designed to be statistically modeled. So I'm not going to go into standard deviations and all this other, statistic stuff. Don't worry about it, all right? I'm just showing you that there's a difference here, all right? And you can replicate this at home if you're interested, and you can do a huge, old, big study, and you can get it peer-reviewed and publish it in Nature magazine or something, all right? Well, anyway, let's go into the results here. The most flexible deck, guess what it is? Why, I think I've already told you in other videos. It's the Chem. As far as poker, this series is focusing on poker-sized cards. I will talk about bridge-sized cards in another series, okay? So poker-sized plastic cards. The paper cards were stiff enough that they were so consistent that I needed more weight, so I'm going to not discuss the paper cards. I'll probably roll in a picture of a monarch or something, not flexing very much compared to all the plastic. So we're going to talk about the plastic cards in this video. The Chem face cards were the most flexible. Second was the design cards. Okay, lovely cards, second most flexible. All right, but let's jump here to the least flexible cards for a second. Jamaica. This is just the clear package. I'm looking for, or this is the clear case. Here it is, found it. This is the actual package. Jamaica, this is what it looks like. These inside of here. Jamaica were the least flexible cards I measured. Face up or face down. And some of these had less of a spread. The Chem had a pretty wide spread, face up, face down. Jamaica and Modiano had less, but these were some of the stiffer cards I measured. And then tied for second least flexible were the Modiano and the Bicycle Duraflex. Okay, the Fournier and the Bicycle Prestige, both made in Spain, I suspect in the same plant. Their flexibility was so close, I could not tell. There was less than a pixel difference between these three decks, okay, for the card that I sampled. And what's that worth to you? Take it for what it's worth. And, when I zoom in, you can see that there is a difference, but really, in the real world, when you zoom out, you're talking about less than a millimeter, maybe a millimeter difference between the most flexible and the least flexible. The third most flexible, so coming back to the flexibility side, was the Del Negros. And we had some in between. Copag and Ace Authentic were very, in the middle. Okay, so let me put all of these decks in here. These are the ones that are represented in these pictures. Okay, so now what's the point of all of this? Why am I doing this in the first place? Remember what I said about your purchase decision? And I asked you, think about it. How does flexibility influence your purchase decision? Well, I thought I liked flexible cards more than non-flexible cards, but out of these decks, my favorite cards are the Chem face cards, all right? So again, I'm not going to put the box out here, just as U.S. Playing Card Company. The Chem are my favorite, absolutely favorite. Jamaica are number 2. So I go from the most flexible to the least flexible. Wow, all right, so maybe flexibility isn't that important on my list of things. Followed by Design and Modiano. Design are flexible, and again, Modiano are tied for the second least flexible. So I'm on both ends of the spectrum. So I either like things that are not flexible or very flexible and everything in between. But I love the ace cards too, as far as like a workhorse deck, get her done kind of a deck. So I'm all over the place. Now I have to ask myself, and you have to ask yourself this too when you're purchasing face cards, especially a premium deck, that tiny little less than a millimeter extra flex from the Chem cards, is that what gives it the edge and makes it number 1? It could be. It could be the texture. The Chem have a wonderful texture to the card. That might be it as well. Maybe it's the thinness. Maybe it's how thick it is. There are so many little subtle things. I propose, and I suspect, again, this is not science, this is just my opinion, what makes me feel good emotionally, and that's what all purchasing is, right? It makes you feel good. I suspect that flexibility does play a very small part in my love of the Chem face cards. However, no longer do I feel like flexibility is one of the top 2 things I look for in a deck of cards. This little exercise right here has changed my opinion about how important flexibility is in a set of face cards, especially with automatic shuffling machines. Professional dealers now don't really have to worry about it. as far as like finger fatigue. And I've shuffled bicycle paper deck for 6 hours, and 6 hours a week, maybe in a go, and I don't have any fatigue or joint issues. All right, that's just me. Your mileage may vary. You may find that shuffling paper decks for 6 hours is a little bit too much. So leave comments, tell us what you think. But as for me, I'm not terribly worried about flexibility. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe.